afternoon, everybody. You can keep helping yourself to all the food in the back. There's plenty to go around, as you see. Thank you so much to the Cypress Falls team for hooking us up with some Raising Cane's today. And also, as added bonus, you see Chef Brent back there. He actually brought some warm cookies that he just baked and some milk. So you have cookies and milk for dessert if you want that. So help yourself. You won't go hungry. Welcome to the October press conference. We're going to have Darin Crawford, the Director of Food Service, speaking with us today. He's got some interesting news, some developments in their department that he's going to share. And hopefully you guys can derive some good, story ideas out of it for your publications. For those of you watching via the live stream, we're going to be streaming on YouTube Live, and this will be available as just a YouTube video after we're done, so you can go back and watch and take notes. For those of you participating remotely, definitely chime in with the CFISD Presser hashtag and ask some questions, and I will pepper those in along with the questions that we get from the audience here. So looking forward to that interaction. Right now, I'm going to introduce a few Cypress Falls student journalists, and they're going to give you a little bit of background on the program here at Cypress Falls. We have Brian Crescencio, Jacqueline Gonzalez, and Elise Maxey. Come on.
Hi, my name is Brian Crescencio, and I am one of the co-editors of our school's yearbook.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Gonzalez, and I'm the president of my yearbook club.
Elise is our newspaper staff, and she's also the vice president of the club, but she's not here at the moment. Our program really isn't as big as we'd hope it'd be, but we make it work. We're a very strong, tight-knit family team, and we actually started a yearbook club here in order to get more people who probably couldn't be in the class to help to grow out their skills in journalism.
Our newspaper kids have been working hard on our school news website called the yeah.
And really, journalism for us, it's just something we like to do, and being able to be part of this program and create something that we know at the end of the year kids can have and look back on in later years is really fun to do.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. And then just one final reminder, Darin's going to have some opening comments, and then we're going to open it up for questions. And if you have any questions, just remember to say your name and the school that you're with when you introduce yourself, all right? So without further ado, Mr. Darin Crawford.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. I apologize that I'm not an Olympian. I know that's kind of the bar that was set early this year. But I do have a few things that I want to talk to you about that I think will be important to some of the students at your schools. Last year, I did a press conference out at Cy Ranch. I don't know if anybody was at that. But kind of the focus of that was how we were going to have to change our ranch dressing due to some federal requirements. That's why we got rid of the ranch that we used to make, and we started doing a little packet of fat-free ranch, which proved to be very, very unpopular. I think that is an understatement to say very unpopular. Also, as a part of those same regulations, we had to really limit the condiments, and not to get into that too much, but the kind of short version of why we had to do that, there's a provision in the law called Smart Snacks, which limited the amount of sodium and the amount of fat that could be in anything that is sold that's not part of a meal. So while, for instance, with ketchups, like if you've got today at school, yesterday we had the seasoned potato wedges, and those come with ketchup, and you get like one ketchup. If it's part of a meal, really, you could get two ketchups and it wouldn't go over the line. But if you were to buy it by itself, we wouldn't be able to sell it. So we really had a choice to make where we either had to have a whole list of things they can't buy by themselves, which is fairly confusing and would cause the lines to slow down and be just on the face of it kind of ridiculous, or just limit the condiments. So looking back on the year, or I guess it's about 6 months since we did that, we've decided that we actually need to go in that direction. So starting in November, we will have a list of items that can't be sold by themselves, and that's really most of the side items. Entrees really won't be affected, but side items, a lot of those you won't be able to buy by themselves. However, we will be able to, one, get back actual ranch dressing. That it's still a low-fat ranch dressing, but it's stuff that we make at the production center, which the quality of it is far superior to the little package of ranch. And we'll be able to give some more condiments. So I'm actually putting together some stuff to send out to the principals, let them know. But basically that's going to start on November 1st. So I know just from comments that we get on Twitter, a lot of people are very unhappy with the limits on condiments. So hopefully this will ease that a little bit and still comply with the law. The second thing that I really wanted to talk about today is another thing that we're doing effective November 1st, which is really changing up our pizza program at the school. Especially at secondary schools, you know, pizza is something that is served every day. And in the past, we've really kind of limited it to cheese pizza, pepperoni pizza. We wanted to give some more variety in there, and we also wanted to make sure that the quality of that pizza is as good as it could be and still meet the requirements. So some of the requirements that we are up against, you know, the crust has to be whole grain. There is a fat limitation and a sodium limitation as well with pizza. So we went to our pizza manufacturer, which is actually a fairly local company. It's Alpha Pizza. They're up in Waller, so that pizza is made about 10 miles from here. And we talked to them about the crust and improving the crust. And we also talked to them about some potential different toppings that we could do here. And we worked with our Chef Brent back there, to actually work on some different topping ideas. So we do have the newer pizza in, so you may or may not have noticed a difference in the pizza, but there were some significant crust changes, which really make it a better quality product. We also have 2 members of our staff in food service who are quality assurance, and we've had for the past month them going out to every secondary school, working with the staff at that school to make sure that when we make the pizza, it is as good as it is going to be. You know, we have an ideal pizza. There are pictures even. So everybody is replicating that. And so starting in November, we're going to roll out some new toppings. Those will include a macaroni and cheese with turkey bacon on it. There will be a buffalo chicken. And then there will be like a supreme pizza, which will have pepperoni, sausage, and a variety of vegetables. So those are some things that we hope will be popular. We actually did some work with some students at Cy Springs in their culinary academy. We had them come do a little focus group, make some pizza, taste some pizza, give us some feedback. So we put a tremendous amount of time and energy into it, and we really hope that kids will like that, or students will like that, because I think it's a much better product that we're going to be putting out. And since it is an option that we do have every day, we wanted it to be good. Also, those new recipes that we're doing, that is really kind of just the start of it. We want to expand that because we have a lot of flexibility of what we can do. So certainly, you know, if there are students at your campuses who really go, I'd love to have this, let your cafeteria manager know. Shoot us an email, and we can work on getting some other items. So with that said, that's really the main thing that I want to get across, and I'll open it up for questions.
Now this happened, my name's Kate Shadell from Jersey Village High School, and this happened numerous amount of years ago, but I remember there used to be a lot of ice cream products that you could sell, like with little chocolate
Yes.
popsicles and stuff, and I was kind of surprised whenever you guys took those away. I just wondering if you guys bring them back. Is there a reason for them leaving?
The main reason that they left, there were really 2 things that kind of happened at the same time. One was the smart snack regulation, because one of the things with smart snacks is it limits fat, and it doesn't limit total fat in an item. It limits fat as a percentage of calories. It's limited to 35%. So on a traditional ice cream, it's not going to meet that. There is also a sugar total that is limited. So in some of the fruit bars, because of their sugar content, they won't meet it. We had been working with Bluebell to actually develop some items that would meet Smart Snacks. About the same time that happened is when Bluebell had their listeria incident and they stopped selling to schools. After they reopened, they still don't sell to schools, and they really have no plans to start selling to schools again, so we were left without an ice cream vendor. Bluebell, due to their popularity in Texas, they really had a lock on the school food service market, so nobody else was in that market. So last year, another company got in to the market, and they started selling. We started off kind of slow with them. They're called Southern Stars, the company. They sell Hershey's, which it's weird because it is spelled like Hershey's, the chocolate company. It's not the same company, although they are located in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So it's a little misleading. I don't know how they get around the trademark on that. I think it is another member of the Hershey family, which is probably more information than you want. But so we started small with them with just cups. This year we have added ice cream sandwiches. So there are mini ice cream sandwiches, full-size ice cream sandwiches, and I think we have about 3 or 4 other novelties that we're getting from them. One of the challenges with Cypher is due to our size, it takes them a while to ramp up production to get it to us. So you should be seeing within the next couple of weeks some more variety there because they do meet the Smart Snacks and we have some options available there. So we are trying to increase that a little bit. But it was really those 2 things that happened. Good question, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead.
My name's Katrina. I'm with Cypress Falls, and I don't actually ask the lunch, but how many vegetarian or vegan options do we actually have in the Cypress system?
Okay, so on a given day, and I will go vegetarian instead of vegan. And Lisa Colbert is back there. Lisa is a dietitian. She's our assistant director of food service, and she may have to jump in and help me with vegetarian versus vegan. But on a typical day at a secondary school, we have cheese pizza, we have a hummus lunchbox, we have a yogurt lunchbox, and I guess those are the 3 items that are every day there. On some days when we have nachos, we offer either a meat and cheese nacho or just a cheese nacho, but we always have at least 3 items. Anyone else? Go ahead.
I'm Kirby Meyer from Cypress High School. Kind of similar to that question. I'm assuming it would be more costly to go more in a plant-based direction with items. And if so, have you ever considered maybe starting a community district garden?
We actually, in 12 of our elementary schools right now, we have school gardens. And we've actually, the district has partnered, or the schools have partnered with a lady named Stephanie Baker. She has a company called Ready to Grow Gardens. We've been working with her for the past about 6 months to really feature those items that are being harvested and get those into the schools. I mean, obviously, due to our size, we can't really, go solely from what's in that garden, but we can get those items. So, like for instance, this month we did sweet potato sticks. So it was an uncooked sweet potato. They're just cut in sticks like fries, serve that with ranch dressing, and really kind of use that as a way to introduce, especially our elementary students, to a vegetable that they might not eat in just kind of a fun way. So we really have plans to expand that. The unfortunate thing with the school gardens, or it's not an unfortunate thing, it's unfortunate in implementing it district-wide, is the cost of the school gardens. Because we really, in food service, our funding is totally separate from the district. So there are some things we can use our funding for, some things we can't. We really can't use our funding to fund a solely educational program. However, with some of the cost of the supplies in those gardens, we can. So we're really working through that. We're also looking at some grant money from USDA to try and expand the garden into some schools that don't have school gardens because of financial constraints. So that's one thing that we are working on. In addition to that, we actually last spring, Chef Brent, one of his things that he does besides being a classically trained chef, he also is quite the gardener. So one day we were talking about school gardens, and we said it would be awesome if in our building on Perry Road we had a garden, because our building was built in '86. At that time, kind of the model for building an industrial building is just a big square concrete box, which is what we look like. So like when you pulled up to our building, it looked kind of like a prison. And I said, let's make it look a little less prison-like. You know, if we had some plants out there where when you walk in, you can smell things blooming, you can see things, it looks more like a place where people make food. And it is a place where people make food. So he started with a small plot, and he keeps expanding that. So now we have some fruit trees there. What do you have in the garden right now, Brent?
Right now we have lemongrass, rosemary, oregano, thyme, a couple varieties of tomatoes, goat squash, sweet potatoes, some variety of string beans, blue leg, purple, wax beans. Not a large variety, we have several acres of each, but I have a little of those spread out all over.
So yeah, our plan with that is to kind of use it as a model as we get into school gardens. And certainly our partnership with Stephanie Baker has been great. She's someone who's very passionate about that and has actually turned that into a way to make a living and really help kids and get them engaged in it. So we definitely want to be a part of that and continue to be a part of it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
There's a new cold food facility being built right next to Cypress, and
Yes.
I was wondering, how do you foresee that cold food facility helping better the industry of food service across the district?
Okay, so we have right now, and I'm probably giving you the wrong number, so fact check me. Are we doing live fact checking? 86 campuses
Yes.
with kitchens where we produce food. But the district continues to grow, and it grows. You know, we're on Perry Road, which is kind of the older part of the district, which is all built out and grown. In addition to making components for about 120,000 meals a day at Perry Road, we also have 2 warehouses there, which we use to service the entire district. Right now, we have a small satellite facility at the Berry Center, which is part of the Berry Center. It has cold and frozen, and we run about 8 routes out of the Berry Center. However, all of our growth is in that area. So it's really not efficient for us to truck stuff from Perry Road, you know, out to the other side of the district. So we're building this. 1, we're out of space, and 2, we're specifically out of space at the Berry Center. So we're really going to use that to satellite food. So what we do typically in production for the side of the district that the Berry Center serves and this facility will serve, you know, we prepare the food or prepare components for food, and everything gets packed up for specific schools. We have a semi-truck that makes a couple of trips back and forth to the Berry Center each day, and then we have smaller trucks that go from there to the schools. So with this new facility, we'll be able to run more routes out of this side of the district, which will save fuel. It'll leave less of a carbon footprint, and it'll ensure that we can get stuff timely to the schools, because sometimes with traffic it is very tough, especially if there's a mistake, and you know, we call it a hot shot. So if you find out, for instance, Cy Park, our newest high school, off of Fry and 529, if you find out at 9 o'clock in the morning that they need something, and lunch starts at 11, by the time we get something prepared and get sent out there, you know, it can take 45 minutes or an hour just to drive to Cy Park. So this will alleviate some of that. Yes?
How does the food services deal with food allergies in the district?
Okay, that is the thing really that I am most proud of that we do. We have really 2 types of special diets that we deal with. There are food allergies, and then there are texture modified foods. And both of those things were kind of handled at each campus. Sometimes it was handled by the nurse, sometimes by the speech pathologist, sometimes by the cafeteria manager. And with that many hands in it, there was no central place to really track those children. So about 3 years ago, we made a decision to take one of the dietitians on staff and make that a year-round position. She used to work 9 months, but we said, let's make her year-round and assign one of her duties to be special meals. So really any student in the district who requires a special meal because of an allergy or because of dysphagia or anything that would require a texture modified meal, the parent fills out a form, it goes to Michelle in our office. She reviews that, the nurse gets a copy, the cafeteria manager gets a copy, it gets put in our computer system and flagged. So that makes certain that at the point of sale, we're going to catch that student and know what they need. The other side of it is how we prepare that food. So since we have a central production facility, we decided at that point too that there's no need to have so many different people trying to make these meals. Let's train a few people at our facility so that it can be done right and we can take care of those kids every time. So we did that. Brent was actually instrumental in that. He's getting a lot of the credit today. But for texture modified meals, there are 3 different types. There's pureed, mechanically soft, and chopped, which they're, again, we have pictures of on the wall to show our folks what needs to be done. But for a pureed meal, in the past, before we did this, what could happen, and what did happen oftentimes, is either cafeteria manager or a teacher's aide or the speech pathologist would take like chicken nuggets, put them in a blender, sometimes with water, sometimes with milk, sometimes with juice. It was very inconsistent, and I don't think a lot of thought had been put into it. So what we had Brent do was design a cycle of 10 different menu items. So we had a 10-day cycle there. And all of those meals are designed to be pureed. So they don't necessarily have the same ingredients as like a chicken nugget would. But at the end of the day, if you close your eyes and take a spoonful, that's what it tastes like. So it made a huge difference, and we got several letters from parents and several letters from students, saying my lunch used to not be so good, and now it is great. And so that was very rewarding. With the allergen-free stuff, we have 6. Is it 6 or 8? You said allergens. 8. So they're the top 8 allergens, and we can screen for all of those. That might mean that just there are certain items a student can't have. Some students have multiple food allergies, so they get an allergen-free meal that we produce at the production center. And that meal actually cost us about $7 to produce, which is far more than we actually get for it, because allergen-free stuff is very expensive. But again, for those students who need that, it's worth doing. So I'm really proud of what we've done. Thank you.
Ethan Roebuck, Cypress High School. What would you guys say is the most, monumental step in the future for improving both the health side of the food and also just quality-wise, other than the pizza that you just?
Well, I guess the biggest thing that is going to impact us, and it should impact us very soon, are federal regulations. Because the original School Lunch Program Act was the Richard B. Russell Act. It was in 1946. And it was a 5-year plan. And so every 5 years it's supposed to be reauthorized by Congress, and they get an opportunity to rewrite all of the rules. The last time it was reauthorized was in 2010, so that's the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act, which made significant changes. Some I loved, some I didn't love as much, but it was really an effort to kind of put school lunch in line with the Institute of Medicine's dietary recommendations for Americans. So I think overall that was a good piece of legislation. It needs some tweaks. So those of you who take math probably We realized that if it was done in 2010 and it's done every 5 years, it's overdue. And it's way overdue now. So when it gets done, I think the first year, which would have been 2015, Congress had other priorities. There was a whole crisis where the government was going to shut down. Nobody was interested in working on child nutrition. This year, nobody was interested in it because they want to wait and see how the election goes. So I really think next year we're going to see some significant changes. And those changes ultimately are the biggest thing that drive what we do. So we're really kind of in a wait and see as to what that is going to do. From a quality standpoint, one of the things I talked about earlier is we now have 2 staff members, which we added last year in quality assurance, which is not to say that in the past we didn't have quality assurance, because our managers are responsible for maintaining the quality, but we didn't have people that had no other duties besides going and checking on quality. So we have those 2 ladies, each one has about half of the district. Right now we have them working on pizza. I think the next thing that they're going to tackle is probably vegetables, because that's sometimes a forgotten item. I think sometimes students just want to forget it, but vegetables are something that if they're done properly, they can be more appetizing. So we want to make sure that we identify which schools are doing items the best way, and then train everybody to replicate that across the district. So that's the goal from a quality standpoint. Go ahead.
I have a question about federal regulations in terms of disposing of food, and what the district, in terms of how much food has to be thrown away because of federal regulations.
Yeah, no, there are a couple of different angles on that. The first one, which is one that's really unavoidable, the regulations really require us to have the same options available for the last student as we had for the first student, which is a great thing, and it makes sense, and it'll make you happy if you're the last student in line. But what that means is that every day when that last student comes through, every choice is available. So there is some waste generated from that, because our general practice is, the regulations allow us to re-serve food the next day. If we have leftovers, sometimes if it is nacho day, you might see nachos tomorrow. But our practice is, if it's gone out on the line, like once it is out there and being served, it gets disposed of. So that's one big chunk. If you look at a high school that has 25, 30 lines, at the end of the day, that's quite a bit of food that just has to get dumped. The other issue of waste is, the federal requirements. One of the things that they do require is that for a reimbursable meal, each student take a fruit or a vegetable. And the way the law is written is that they have to take it. There's no way to enforce that it gets consumed. So that has generated some waste, because the difference cost-wise to a student with a reimbursable meal versus non-reimbursable, if you just wanted an entree, a milk, and just an entree and a milk, that would cost, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but let's say about $3.50 is what it's going to cost you for non-reimbursable. Where if you just picked up an apple, it'll cost you $2.50. So most students will pick up the apple, whether they eat the apple or not. Unfortunately, that food, there's not much that we can do with it. At some elementary schools, you will see share tables, which are really not permitted by regulation. They kind of exist outside of regulations. And so on a share table, if a student has food that they're not eating, they put it on the share table. If somebody else is hungry, they can take it. Which is really more of a health department issue. So we try to do things that are only packaged and that don't require refrigeration. But as for leftover fruit, that is a question that we get consistently, from students, from parents, from staff members. Is there something, can we collect this leftover fruit, donate it to the food bank? We really can't, and it's more of a health department regulation than a federal regulation, but once someone has owned that food, if we give the food away, then we're liable for it and it hasn't been under our control. So that's one of the things that does create squeeze. Yes?
From Cypress Falls HS. What is your plan on changing the school menu?
The school menu? So we do changes, typically, we will do some mid-year changes, but they've been planned at the beginning of the year. There are several things that feed into that. One is, again, due to our size, we do bids for you. So typically our bids are done for most items in February. So really, if we're planning changes for next school year, we're working on those changes right now so that we can put together specifications, get those items, and have bids in place by February. For the typical month-to-month menu, we do make some changes there. If we put out something new, if people don't like it, then we have to replace that with something. So we have a meeting every month, and that meeting is held about 2 months in advance, called the menu planning meeting. In that meeting, I'm there, Lisa is there, Brent is there, the folks who produce the food are there. We have several of the production staff. We have folks from the warehouse that are there. The lady that I was speaking about who deals with special diets, she's there. And then our nutrition ed coordinator is there. So I think in that room we typically have like 4 dietitians and a bunch of other people. And so then we have to take the existing things that we have, make them fit on the menu, make sure that we're able to produce them on the days that we're going to serve them, because that can be an issue as well. Since we have the central kitchen, if it is cinnamon roll day on Tuesday, well, those cinnamon rolls aren't made Monday night. They're made in advance and then shipped out. So when we balance the menu, we have to do that. Another tool that we use for menu planning for the future, every spring, I think this year is actually January, we have a big food tasting at the Berry Center, which the public is invited. We typically have about 400 or 500 people that go out there. What we do is we have menu items that we're thinking about. We have vendors come in, they prepare the food, and we have the public come in, taste it, rate it, and we use that as a driver for what's going to end up on the menu. No problem. Thank you.
This question gets more to the high schools, but why are they still selling maybe like the whole apples and oranges when they usually just end up used as lunchroom projectiles?
That is actually, that is a concern that typically the last 2 weeks of the school year, you'll see that we don't actually serve those because we have principals request that we don't. The thing is with whole fruit, one, it has a longer shelf life. 2, it is less expensive. A whole apple costs less than a bag sliced apple that you only get about half an apple. The other thing is that one of the other goals of the child nutrition program, the federal child nutrition program, is to feed children. The other goal is to support American agriculture. So USDA, they buy huge quantities of food from farmers in America. They provide a lot of that food to us at no cost. So for us, it's about $2.5 million in commodity food that we get. Fresh whole fruit is a big part of that program. So that's one of the reasons why we sell it. And it is, if you're looking at what is the cleanest label that you can have, fresh whole fruit is a clean label. But like you mentioned, there are times when we stop serving it at principal request because of food facts. Yes?
Anthony, Cypress Falls. How do you decide how much of a product is going to produce each day? Like if it's popular, does that demand more or vice versa?
Yes, it actually, our cycle, we do the menu planning meeting about 2 months in advance. Brent may have to jump in and help me with some of this because I'll probably get it wrong. He will too, but he'll disagree with me. And it'll make it look like he's right. So the managers, they get the menu about a month in advance. And they place orders. So each school places an order based on how that item sold the last time it was made. So they're always tracking that. So they place their order based on that. About 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out. 3 weeks out, we consolidate those orders. So then we can look at the entire district and go, okay, how much nacho cheese do we need for this day? Then the leads and the production manager at the production center, they develop a production schedule to make sure that all of those items are available to be shipped when they need to be shipped. So then at that point, before they get shipped, that whole consolidation process has to be deconsolidated, and then all of the items for a specific school are then assembled together by our pack out department, put in bins, stored, and then shipped out to the schools. So logistically, it's a big process, but there's a lot of time that goes into it. As I was mentioning earlier about hot shots, what can happen in that process is mistakes are made because you're dealing a month in advance, 6 weeks in advance. So if mistakes are made, typically what has happened is the production facility, they produce extra. So that if there is a mistake, they're able to cover it. Go ahead.
East Cypress High School. Earlier this semester, the power went out around the district and went out for several hours. Could you, obviously freezers and refrigerators don't have any power. Could you explain what kind of plan that Food Services has in place to kind of follow up with situations like that?
That is a great question. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. So it was, I believe, the second day of school when we had the substation fire. So I was actually at the gym, and I'm watching the news, and I see, wait, that looks just like the substation over by Hamilton, and then it crawls across. Okay, probably time to stop the gym, get on the phone. It was about 30 schools, I think, that ultimately lost power. Most of our schools, especially the newer ones, have walk-in coolers and walk-in freezers. If a school has a walk-in, those are on emergency power. So a generator, in theory, kicks in and covers that. So on a normal emergency, we would send somebody out to the school that is affected and check just to make sure the generator kicked in. Because the problem with generators is there's a little fuse box that connects the generator to the school, and sometimes those fuses, when it kicks over, they blow. So we had more than a few schools. Security was having a pretty rough night. So I called security and said, okay, how many schools are down? He said, are you kidding me? Like, it'd be easier to tell you how many aren't. And I said, no problem, I'm gonna head over. So I went over there. And on the way, I started calling people to get as many people as we could to check schools. So we checked physically. Someone from our staff went to every school. And a lot of those someones are in the room. So we decided we would have our own command center because I knew that security, they're getting overwhelmed because every principal, everybody wants to know how their school is. And there's, at night at security, it's not a huge group of people. So we went over physically, got the information from them, and we had our command center. So I called Lisa in the back, and I said, Lisa, you are the command center. Can you come up to the office? And she said, I'm just leaving the gym, I'm sweaty, I need a shower. And I said, well, fortunately, you'll be by yourself and just on the phone. So she came up to the office. Brent and I and our assistant director of purchasing, he's the guy who's over the warehouses. He started calling in his people, and we all trekked out to all the different schools. In some schools, we had generator issues, so it's great that we were out there, because in some cases, we were able to get a refrigerated truck out, move the food to our central facility, so we could preserve that food. There are some schools that do not have generator backup, So in those schools, if we could get to them, we moved the food. If we couldn't get to them in time, then we discarded it. So it was an ordeal that I don't honestly even remember when we got home, but it was very late. But we were able to have minimal interruption the following day. The following day, it was for the most part business as usual. We did have to get our production team in early the next morning to replace some stuff that had gotten thrown away. But by actually touching all of those schools, we were able to minimize the loss.
Were there any lessons learned from that? Did you guys have a plan already in place to combat something like that or deal with it?
We had a plan in place that worked pretty good. We didn't really ever foresee that it would be that scope. But really, I mean, the scope increased, the plan was the same, and it really did work. So that was gratifying. The next day, because everybody's exhausted and we're thinking this is going to be a horrible day, it really wasn't a horrible day. We just had a few schools to replace product, had to make a bunch of phone calls to managers and say, look, I know that you have milk in your milk box. No, you don't anymore. The dairy has to get out some. The dairy was actually very responsive. I think we called them about 10 o'clock at night and said, ramp up production because we're going to need extra stuff. But part of what enabled us to do that is the central production facility and the main warehouses, because we have a lot of product there. And in the central kitchen, we routinely have emergencies that typically happen at lunchtime. Today, Kayla lost power about 9 o'clock this morning. It wasn't going to be back on until about noon. Well, that cuts the heart out of lunch. So our production team, they were able to put together about 1,000 box lunches and get a truck out there. Everybody got lunch. So it's a good operation, but a disaster on that scale, it definitely was challenging. I think the biggest takeaway from that was probably the benefit of having one person back at the office coordinating, kind of doing our own command center, because that worked really well. Thank you. Anyone else?
What's your biggest goal this year in the food service industry for State High School?
My biggest goal is to increase our participation, especially at lunch. When Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act came out, we started implementing regulations, and it was about 4 different sets that went in over time. And each time we would implement something, participation in the number of kids that ate dropped a little. It was never substantially, like you would see in the news that some school districts were pulling out of the program. We never experienced huge drops. However, again, with our size, if you go down 1%, that's a tremendous amount of meals. It's also a tremendous amount of students that I don't know if they're getting fed, because we, in Site Fair, we are about 50% economically disadvantaged for a lot of our students. That's where they get food. And if they're not getting it from us, I don't know where they're getting it. So we really, this year, we are focusing on training at the schools, making sure that what we're putting out is the best it can be, because we are constrained by finances, we're constrained by regulations, but as far as putting on a smile and making the food look as good and taste as good as it can be, that's within our control. So that's really my goal, is to focus on that and get more students eating.
One more question.
Go ahead.
How would you guys like to see or enable the student body to be involved in instant feedback from your lunches?
I would love and I would welcome constructive feedback from Twitter. I really do. I mean, Joel monitors the district Twitter account, so anytime we get tagged, he sends me an email. Most of the feedback that I get from Twitter, though, is not really constructive. It's somebody trying to make a statement, get some followers, and get a laugh. And that is the unfortunate thing about Twitter. I love that it is immediate, but I think the best way to actually affect change in the cafeteria is to go talk to the manager at the cafeteria. If there's an issue with a meal, if you go talk to the manager, they will actually take care of it. They'll call me and there will be a fix. And that, is a very old school, low tech method of communication, but face-to-face communication is very effective for problem solving. I don't think Twitter really works to solve problems, and I think a lot of the folks who post on Twitter, they're not looking to solve a problem, they're trying to make their followers get a kick out of it. And it doesn't help. But yeah, talk to your manager. They're really nice people.
Good, Darin.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
I'm going to bring back up some Cy Falls representatives here who have a gift for you.
Oh, thank you.
Just to thank you for coming out. It's a HSJN tumbler.
Awesome.
And you can keep a beverage in there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
And then just wanted to, remind you, a lot of good story angles that came from this, condiments, new pizzas, just a lot of great stuff that came from this. So definitely want to look to see some stories coming in, some story ideas from you guys that we'd be happy to help publicize on the district website. So look forward to that. Want to just give final thank yous to everyone from Food Service that came out. Thank you guys for being here and for the extra treat with the cookies. It was really cool. Thank you to Cy Falls for hosting and having the Raising Cane's, which is like above and beyond, really awesome. Thank you so much. And everyone that showed up and all the advisors, thank you for being a part of this. And also Gary, our photographer, thank you for taking photos. And Leslie, our Director of Marketing and Business Relations, thank you for being here to support as well. Want to tease the November 16th press conference. It's going to be our next one. It's going to be at Cypress Ridge High School. We have a Cy Ridge Ram right here. They're going to be hosting, and we just recently booked a guest. It's going to be Frankie Jackson, who's our Chief Technology Officer, and kind of her team is in charge of the whole network throughout the district. And I know you guys probably have a lot of questions about, what's blocked, what's not blocked, what's up with the Wi-Fi at 10 o'clock on a Thursday. So things like that, she's going to be able to help you out and give you some good answers for those kind of questions, and you can have some good stories that come out of that also. That's it, guys. We're going to take a big group photo up here at the front. If everyone wants to come up, Gary's going to take a shot of us, but thank you so much for being a part of this.
Maybe I'll get somebody to take a picture and I'll get in.
I'll do it.
Do a selfie.
Okay, great. Hey, did I get most of the advertising? Okay.